What's up, everybody? It's Graham here. I'm here with my boy David. We're just talking, chatting. It's going to be a special edition of the Blue Eyed Devil podcast, available on all streaming platforms across the globe. You know where to find it. Go find it. Today, I'm just sitting down with David. We're going to have a great conversation. David, I just want to start off with a pretty easy question. Like, where did everything start for you? Like, I know growing up, everybody goes through similar experiences, but where did you find that, like, was your experience to help you become yourself, become David Giffen?
Oh man, the truth is, I feel like I've lived the kind of life where I've been more than one person. As you know a little bit about my story, I was an immigrant when I came here from Scotland as a little kid. I was a priest in my 20s and 30s. I've been a podcast host over the last couple of years. I'm a dad, but I think at my core, right, like when I really kind of dig down. When I had the opportunity to lead, whether it was in a project at school, whether it was running for some kind of elected office, whether it was as a leader of a community, when I get asked, I used to say to I had a friend growing up, I wasn't the best football player. And he used to tell me it's because I didn't want the ball. He wanted the ball, right? He always wanted the ball, and he was one of the best players. When it comes to football, that maybe I don't want the ball, but when it comes to leading groups of people, give me the ball.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And I see that in you as a leader, and you can see it even in your son, that he's growing up to be a leader himself, right?
Yeah, he is.
So, like, what was the catalyst to make you realize, like, this is what I wanted to do?
So, and I'll bring it back again. I'm still not sure. I'm at the point where I know exactly what I want to do. Right? I get pulled between different things. I work on the front lines as a case manager for a community service organization. I carry about 16 clients, all of whom have various backgrounds from criminal history to incarceration to homelessness. And we work on life skills and accessing resources. And it's something that I'm very proud of and I'm good at. But at the same time, I love getting in here. I love producing. I love digital communications. And in all honesty, watching my son start to really gravitate towards these things makes me want to be a part of it even more. So I'm caught in between different worlds a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And still trying to figure out, 44 years old, still trying to figure out who Dave Giffen really is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think we never really stop with that journey, right? Like, we're always expanding and growing in some sort of direction.
Yeah,
but
I
I think it's like as we get older, we realize what's important and we start growing in those directions more.
Yeah, and I think, I used to be told, don't close doors, right? Or when you close a door, you're headed in a different direction. I try really hard to keep a lot of doors open. Some doors will get closed on you, but you don't have to close them all, right? Like, and I'm seeing now as my own podcast venture and my sons start to develop, a lot of the relationships and communities that we belong to, because of the different work and the varying doors that stay open, it presents opportunities to us that we would never have otherwise.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And I think, like, that's what it's all about, is just presenting those opportunities and taking advantage of them and not saying no, like always saying yes, right?
Yeah.
And so on your journey, like, what were some of the biggest challenges that you've faced, and like what were things that you've learned overcoming those challenges?
Oh man, get up off the mat, right? Like, we're all going to get hit. We're all going to get hit hard sometimes, right? And I have been as much as anyone. And there are going to be days where it's hard to see why getting up off the mat makes sense. But there's more for everybody, and there's another day, and you're never over. And so I think for me, it's embracing a kind of resilience that has a deep belief that there is a better day tomorrow. And I have to posture myself that way if I'm going to do the kind of frontline work I'm going to do, and if I'm going to incorporate that into trying to inspire the young man that I'm raising and the communities I belong to.
Mm-hmm. And when you speak about how you're a leader and how you're helping the community, for everyone out there who wants to do something similar, but they are not sure where to start, like, what would be some words of advice for those people?
surround yourself with people who you want to be more like. Surround yourself with people who share the kind of values and aspirations you have, and surround yourself with people who want to see you excel in leadership. So people who have your best interests at heart. I spent a lot of time being held back in my life at times because people didn't want me to grow into the person I was becoming. And if you surround yourself with naysayers and people who don't believe in you, you won't grow beyond the capacity that they see for you a lot of the time. So yeah, surround yourself with people like the CEO of Toronto Podcast who believes in his clients. Yeah, surround yourself with like-minded people.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And like as a leader and speaking on leadership, I see you as like a mentor, someone who can like help people. You've helped a lot of people in your life. Like, do you have any mentors? And if you have any mentors, what did they teach you? Maybe shout them out. Yeah.
I've had some great mentors in my life. I've had, as you know, I was a priest at one point in my life, and I served religious communities, which most people can't believe me when they went with the life I live now, but it was. And Bishop William Cliff, the Diocese of Ontario. I met him when I was struggling 22, 23-year-old, and over a 20 plus year period, he has never failed to show up for me in the darkest hours of my life. I rarely see him when I'm on top. But when shit goes sideways, Bill Cliff shows up. And he shows up with with bags of hope is what he shows up with, and more. A lot of people say I shouldn't take any mentorship from my son because he's only 11, but I look up to him a lot because the truth is I've done a pretty good job raising him, so he has a lot of the character and values that I admire, and a lot of the time he knows it more purely than I do. We were on a road trip out east. We went to visit Nova Scotia and stayed on Cape Breton, which was an incredible time.
I saw some of the pics, I think, yeah.
Yeah,
Awesome.
Really connecting with our heritage and his heritage. His mom is from Nova Scotia and a descendant of those who came here on ships in the 1800s. And there was a couple of times, you spend 2 weeks one-on-one with your kid where you might lose your temper or get frustrated, and he a number of times he said to me something along the lines of, "Dad, that's not what you tell me you believe." Right? Holding up, kids have a way of holding up a mirror to you and say, "You're not in line with what you're preaching here." Right? Your actions aren't matching up with your words, and I'm grateful for it. Right? To have a strong, independent-minded kid with good values who's not afraid to call his dad out. It's a mentor in training, I suppose. And I've been very fortunate as I've developed my vocation and my career to have mentors like Margot Wilkins, who I had on the podcast, George Arabian from Envision. Lots of folks like that who have shed light for me in industries or vocations that maybe I didn't have as much experience and knowledge as they did, but were kind enough to open the door just a little bit or shed a little light in so that I could see their perspective and maybe follow.
Interesting. And speaking of looking up to your son, I also look up to your son. He's an inspirational little dude, and
Yes,
I see a bright future for him. Whenever I repost him, whenever like people comment on it, I always say like we have a bright generation to come because they're fearless. It seems. Yeah. I mean, I know they're not. They aren't all fearless, but he is fearless when it comes to like his thoughts, how he thinks. He thinks outside the box. He's a contrarian thinker. I know that's like part of your doing as well, but it's just naturally in him, which is cool. And to see him interested in things like politics and history and all the things that are happening in our earth, like I just think it's really cool, by the way.
Rory Giffen is his name. He's the host of the Raising Dad podcast, and
the main host of the Raising Dad podcast.
He'll tell you that. He'll tell you. I ain't nothing. Rory has been very fortunate to have a lot of people who love him and a lot of great mentors. And as he gets older, he reminds me of one of them. His uncle Rob Crocco, died a few years ago, and he was like a brother to me. And Rob was an English teacher, and was very subversive thinking, would have perspectives that would shock everyone, but be so articulate in the way that he would point to certain things. We miss Rob a lot. One of the things I miss about Rob was the way he loved Rory. Rory was diagnosed with Tourette's syndrome and ADHD and OCD when he was 6. He struggled to read all the way into grade 2. And I wasn't able to connect the dots to be able to make that happen for him, which was hard as a dad, right? And Rob, during the pandemic, would do Zoom sessions with Rory and would help him learn to read and write by teaching both Rory and me not to be afraid of words. That he would talk about zombie apocalypses destroying and ripping meat off people's bones, and that's what they would write and read about, because it connected with Rory to be able to use language that he thought was wrong or dangerous. I miss my friend and my brother, and I miss him for a lot of personal reasons, because I knew him since I was 6 or 7. But nothing I miss more about him than the uncle that he was to Rory, because I see so much of him in Rory.
Yeah, and that's cool because now he can live on through Rory.
Totally.
With all that energy, right? It's really cool.
Totally. No, he did me a favor. He built me a best friend in a lot of ways.
That's awesome. I love that. And I can tell you guys are best friends. Like, you could just feel it when you hang out.
Somebody asked me if we're best friends the other day, and I want to say yes. And I think we will be. And I think that's the best answer.
Yeah.
He's too young to be my best friend, because I still have to be his dad sometimes.
That's true.
But huge but to that. If everything goes the way I would like it to go, then yes, he will be my best friend one day. Absolutely.
Yeah. That's the coolest part about being a dad too, is like you're raising someone who is a lot like you, but also different enough that you can still like go back and forth about certain topics and disagree when it comes down to it and still be friends. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
And like he's got his football buddies are fishing and hunting guys, which is not something that I've ever been, to be honest.
Yeah.
Right. We were talking about it the other day, because he's up visiting his grandfather at the cottage. He's been fishing every day, and I said, "You've never asked me to take you fishing," and he said, "Well, you don't like fishing," and I'm like, "You're right." He's like, "Dad, we do tons of stuff that we both like. We don't have to both like everything. I like this, but you don't." And I there's wisdom to that.
There's
too,
so much
right?
wisdom to that. Yeah, I
right.
love
Like.
that.
And so I like that we've got lots of similarities, but I also appreciate the differences, because he teaches me things that way. Yeah.
And you mentioned earlier about how like your son can help hold a mirror up to you when you can't see yourself. When you look into the mirror, are there any like mindset like tactics that you use to keep yourself in the right frame? I know you're big on mental health and you help a lot of people, but when you're like talking to yourself, when you're thinking on how you can better yourself, like are there any tactics or strategies you could share?
Yeah. I would say the big stuff to maintain good mental health is getting rid of negative self-talk. That's I think a lot of us haven't done the work to articulate that. I think a lot of us are very self-critical and have a voice in our head that isn't very kind to ourselves, and much more negative than is required. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't be critical of yourself. That's a different thing. But you can be constructively critical of yourself and not self-flagellate. And so I for myself, I had a lot of problems with negative self-talk for a long time, and I work with Rory on that too, because he's similar, and so I think, and that's connected to a mindfulness. So intentionally choosing what thoughts are flowing through your head, right? Like we can make choices about what we say, what we think, what we eat, we can make these choices. Sometimes we get caught into this spin of thinking that everything just happens. And everything doesn't just happen. We make choices every day about how we set our day, about who we surround ourselves with, what conversations we engage in, what we consume. And all those things will affect our brain and our mind. And so, I think being a dad has helped me with this a lot, right? Because I might be more inclined to make choices that maybe aren't as helpful to me for short-term gain rather than long-term benefit, but I don't want that for him, right? So balanced meals throughout the day, Not sitting in front of a screen for 12 straight hours, right? Not choosing to spend time with friends who bring you down, right?
Mhm.
Like, and some do.
Yeah.
Uh, I think a lot of the good mental health stuff is just making small daily incremental changes for the kind of good health that just makes common sense. It's not that complicated, really.
Yeah. And when you discussed negative self-talk and constructive criticism, like how do you balance that? What there's a fine line in there somewhere where it's still constructive and
Yeah.
or if it's too negative, like how do you balance that? Like
Yeah.
what do you typically do?
Well, I think, give a couple of examples. One is the persona that some of us have to adopt to be able to do the work or the job or the sport or whatever it is. Like, think about Kobe Bryant and the Black Mamba, right? Like, he needed to become that on the court to be able to function the way he did. And Rory talks about that as well on the football field, that he has to get angry in a way that he would never get angry in real life to be able to enter into physical violence the way he does between the whistles, right? So I saw you post something the other day. I'm trying to remember exactly what it was, but it had to do with when you've achieved so many things. Sometimes you can't quite see how much you've achieved over a long time, right? It starts to feel like nothing's going right, even though so much has, right? And that's the kind of unconstructive criticism, right? Like if you're beating yourself up over not achieving everything you wanted today, but over the last year you've achieved huge milestones, right? Like it's being able to be reflective enough from a wider view and be able to see the trend. In the kind of addiction work I do, we talk about the difference between like lapse and relapse and harm reduction versus like full on sobriety. And what I get from that is the recovery model that I believe in, which isn't just for addiction. It's really, we're all recovering from something, right? So like the recovery model I believe in is about a trend. It's, look over a 6-month period, is the trend moving like this? Is it like this? Is it like that? Right? Like,
Yeah.
and if it's moving upward, if it's moving upwards the wrong way, if it's moving in the direction that your goals and aspirations have set out, then you're going in the right direction. And the day or the couple of days, the lapse that has maybe taken you back a little bit is only relative in the wider scope, right? Like if you're only looking right there, it looks like everything's catastrophic and disastrous, but it's not. It's not in the wider view.
Yeah. And speaking of like looking back and going through the journey of everything, like if you could look back at your younger self and give yourself some advice, like what would you say?
Keep going.
Yeah.
Keep going. When I was young, like a lot of young people, I was pretty lost. I didn't know who I was. I was trying to be something I wasn't a lot of the time. Be less interested in all the girls who pay attention to you and more interested in the life you want to build, because the girls you're interested in will show up eventually, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's tough, right? Like, because we look online and we see all the things that we might want, and we think if we can get those things for a day or a minute, right, like that we've achieved something. But it's really about building the life that has sustainability and can have some of those things in it on an ongoing basis. And not to be afraid to build and rebuild. You're not one thing. And you don't have to be that. Whatever thing you are, you don't have to be that forever, right? That you can evolve and change, and your opinions can evolve and change. I don't think any of us stop being who we are. I think there is a core, and maybe only we know who that is, or maybe our parents if we're lucky. But it's okay to experiment and shift and move around with that and try and figure it out. And to not be ashamed of whatever it is that you're drawn to, right? It's really about setting reasonable goals that you can achieve and trying to be as authentic as you can.
And I think naturally when you're being authentic, sometimes you can question or change your beliefs as you go, as you learn more and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And speaking of that, like what's something that you used to believe, say growing up, that over time you've learned and now you might believe something different?
I think hell is a pretty empty place. I do. And I wasn't taught that growing up.
Can you elaborate on that a bit more?
Yeah, I was taught growing up in a pretty traditional Catholic setting that there were people who were going to heaven and there were people who were going to hell. And, you know, if you do these things, you're going to one place. And mostly if you don't do these things, you're going to the other. I don't believe that anymore, to be honest with you. I still am I'm still a religious person, although that's complicated. But you know, let me tell you a story. My grandfather told me this story actually, and I told it back to him the week before he died during the pandemic. And the story goes like this: that St. Peter and the angel Gabriel are standing outside the pearly gates of heaven. They've got the big book there with all the names of everyone who's allowed to get into heaven, and there's a big lineup of folks who are, you know, waiting to get into heaven. And Peter says to the angel Gabriel, he says, something's wrong here. There's way too many people in heaven compared to the number of people you have in the book. You've been letting too many people in. You're letting people in who are not in that book. And Gabriel's like, no, I am not. I'm not doing that. There are all the people who are in here. I send everyone else away, and you know where they go. Peter says, I'm going to go check this out. I'll be back in a minute. He goes, does his rounds, come on back, and checks in with Gabriel and says, Gabriel, never mind. And Gabriel says, what do you mean, never mind? What do you mean? Like, if there are more people in there, they are in the book, we're not doing our job. Peter says, never mind. What do you mean, never mind? Gabriel, it's Jesus. He's pulling people in over the walls. And that became, the longer I was a priest, out of that kind of thinking was a little out of line with the kind of theological teaching of a lot of people around me, but it came to be the very premise of whatever theological posture and center that is my belief system that has led me to be on the side of the criminal and on the side of the prisoner and on the side of the homeless and on the side of the folks that the church doesn't tend to stand next to, because I think Jesus is pulling them in over the walls.
Wow. That gave me goosebumps. For real. Speaking of that, like for people who may have gone down the wrong path their entire life, even if they're 100 years old and they have to start from a clean slate. If you had to start from a clean slate today, completely from scratch, $0, zero connections, zero everything, what would your next step be?
Oh my Lord. If I were to start just
Complete scratch.
Oh man, that's a great question. I don't know, and I mean that sincerely. I rely so much on the things that you know, like I think about my network, and I think the network is the number one, right? Like is the reason I've been able to do so many of the things I've done in my life is because of the relationships I've built, and the folks who've opened doors for me. So I would probably begin by starting to try and build a network, because the thing that I've figured out through my 44 years is that you might be able to get by on your own for a short time, but not for long, right? Like none of us can pull stuff off on our own. The idea that we pull ourselves up by our bootstraps is garbage, right? Like we pull each other up, right? Like I think of you this way, right? Like we pull each other up during times that we need support and help, right?
Yeah.
Like, and it's what I see on the field when I look at Rory playing football, and I look at who he's become as a young man next to other young men who are willing to you know, pull each other up.
Yeah.
Right? It's for real.
It's powerful.
Yeah.
What would you say would be the biggest risk that you've taken, that you were terrified at that moment, but actually it all worked out?
So let me start from the end.
Yeah.
Because everything's a work in progress. Nothing's worked out, right? Like that's the way I kind of see it. I'm not at the end of anything, right? I'm not like people say, are you a success? I don't know yet, right? Like, and even at the most successful moments of my life, I would still say that, because I'm still going somewhere. I'm not done yet. But I do think that Ask it one more time.
Out of all the risks you've ever taken in life, what is a risk that
Yeah.
you were terrified at the moment, but actually it worked out? It could be having Rory as an example. Like it could be literally anything. At the moment, it might have been freaky, but in the long run,
starting Raising Dad, the podcast.
Interesting.
And I'm gonna say, and let me expand on that.
Yeah, please.
So I'm divorced, right? Like I don't have the best relationship with my son's mother, and he and I have an amazing relationship, and I didn't know how family, friends, community, everyone would respond to what we do. And it's gone beyond anything that you and I could have imagined when we sat down the first time on these couches, which is a year and a half ago. He's interviewed politicians and friends and me, and it's
not to mention he's generated like tens of millions of views now.
It's insane. Yeah. It really is that on TikTok and Instagram that he has tens of millions of views. Yeah. He's a legitimate influencer at 11. And much more than I am, which he likes to point out to me all the time.
Shout out, Rory. I know he's thinking that.
But no, for real. And it's not done yet. It's still in progress. So you don't know if a risk is worth it. If you measure the risk by the final outcome, then you're not going to know for a long time whether it's worth it or not. Sometimes the risk itself and the kind of journey that it's going to take you on is the benefit, even if it doesn't work out the way you hoped it would, because the things you're going to learn by taking that risk are going to open up things that you could never have imagined. Could I have imagined a year and a half ago that my son, who was significantly struggling with some of his Tourette's symptoms, which was one of the reasons we thought to do it, would be the captain of his football team, sitting down with 2 award-winning players on his team to interview them about hunting and fishing and football life? I could never have imagined that. What the podcast has done for his confidence, his social network, and his physical self, never mind the managing of mental health symptoms that are where he wants them to be now, right? And it's it was a risk, calculated risk. Still a risk, maybe.
It's a risk for sure, but I think it's a good risk. It's worth it.
Yeah, he is wearing a do-rag on the internet at the moment, going viral, talking about why Kendrick Lamar is a better rapper than Drake while living in Toronto. Yeah. So it's a bit of a risk.
Brand risk for sure.
Yeah. But we'll see.
No, I think it's all positive at the end of the day. Like that's why the beauty of podcasts and the beauty of the society we live in, we can have any thoughts we want. We should be able to share that. If people don't agree with it, that's a topic of conversation. That's how we grow as a community. We share ideas, we disagree, we come together, all those things. Speaking of the community, I know you're a huge community guy. You care for the community, you take care of the community. If you could change one thing about the community or fix one thing about our community, we could say just like Toronto as an example or the GTA. What would be one thing that you could fix? If money wasn't an issue, you could just snap your fingers and fix it. What would be that one thing?
In Toronto?
Yeah.
Less police involvement in situations that don't have significant violence. I think, unfortunately, the Toronto Police Service has not done well by marginalized communities. And when I say marginalized communities, I'm certainly speaking about the Black community. I'm certainly speaking about the Indigenous community. But I'm also speaking about those who struggle with mental health and addiction. They are also a marginalized community who get treated not just by the police, but by hospitals and by lots of different folks as though they are less than and are not deserving of the same dignity as others. And I think that's why I signed up and served for 14 months on the Toronto Community Crisis Service, the pioneer service in the city of Toronto, which is an alternative to police enforcement. So I was a first responder in the field. And if I could have done 12-hour night shifts for the rest of my life, I would have kept doing it, but I couldn't for my own mental health, frankly. But we have this in place now across the city of Toronto and so few cities anywhere have anything like this. And if we access it and utilize it properly, then instances of police brutality, police overreach will be removed, right? They won't be possible to happen the same way. I've said this on other podcasts before. There are instances where police enforcement is necessary. I've never said otherwise, but not even close to the number of calls that police respond to, right? So that would be the big thing for me. And it has to do with my values, the communities that I love and serve. But at the heart, it really is about those guys getting pulled in over the wall, right? Mm-hmm. It's about wanting reconciliation with those who may have broken it, and not wanting the kind of enforcement that creates the kind of trauma that only just sends people into a new spiral of shame, hurt, and hurting other people.
For the people who live in those communities like you and I, who are around this every day, but we're just not sure how to help, what do you think like a step could be that we can take that doesn't feel like too much, but at the same time, like we can help the community? Because I know we have the power to help the community. It's just, I feel a lot of us don't know what the first step is. So do you know like what that first step could be?
Well, it depends on what it is. Get involved, right? Like, like on a very practical level, ask more people who don't look like you, sound like you, or function like you their name. Just ask them their name, right? Like, do that more often. Ask someone who doesn't look, sound, or act like you their name. On a larger level, go to community meetings, right? Sign up for volunteer opportunities. The World Cup's coming, right? Like, it's going to be a madhouse in this city. Sign up to volunteer at something and participate and offer dignity to people who are from other places. Read more. And I don't mean to say that condescendingly, but I think a lot of people in our society have a lot of big opinions and are not as informed as they should be, right? Like, and you have every capacity to be. Because of our access to everything that's on the internet, never mind artificial intelligence now. But read more, be curious, ask hard questions, be self-critical of your own beliefs. Not so that you necessarily will change them, but so you'll understand them better and be able to articulate them better. That kind of thing.
Yeah. We spoke earlier about being a leader and being like a strong, like a pillar of the community. Are there any leaders or pillars of the community that you look up to that maybe you haven't met yet that you'd like to meet one day?
That's a great one. Rory interviewed Dr. Jill Andrew, who's a hero of mine. And I loved listening to her talk on their interview, and stayed in touch with her. Someone that I'd like to sit down and chat with sometime. That's a good question. You know what? I'm kind of blanking on you right now. Who do I?
It could be anyone. It doesn't necessarily need to be in Toronto either. It could be anyone.
Deion Sanders. Cool. I would love to sit down with Deion Sanders on my podcast, actually. So yeah, Deion, if you're listening, he is not only a really fantastic human being, but he's a preacher himself. He is the only athlete, I believe, to ever play in both a Super Bowl and a World Series. And he's a hell of a father. Listening to his pregame talks with his son Shador it's special and inspiring for me as a dad trying to do well by my own son. Not just because they're all football players, but just as a man, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I admire Coach Deion a great deal.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And we spoke earlier about failures and how that's like important in life. You go through the journey. There's a lot of failures that naturally we're going to go through, but as long as we learn from them, we're going to continue getting better. What would be like a major failure in your life that you look back on like, wow, I'm so glad that happened?
Well, I'll first say, and I say this regularly, that we learn everything from failure and very little from success. And I believe that, the reason that I have been successful in my life is because of the number of times I've been able to get up off the mat when I have put a big L on the board and had to try again. I failed at being a priest in the end, right? I wasn't able to maintain the level of discipline and commitment that religious life calls for. And I say that honestly and openly because I don't think I would choose it again, right? To live that way. But being able to take the L on the board, go through a period of brokenness, which I needed to go through, and be able to reshape myself and reinvent myself on the other side of it, has opened more doors than I could have ever imagined during the 10 years that I served in religious life.
Yeah.
And although it brought me so much pain and heartache and loss of a number of different kinds, I wouldn't change it, and because it's built me to be the man that I am now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. And I know like we create a lot of media, you know, like we have a bunch of stuff coming out. It's always everywhere. But like when you watch media, what do you have any podcasts, books, movies that inspire you?
Yeah, no, for sure. I listen to a lot of stuff out of a place called Onsite in Nashville, which is a treatment center that I went to when I was struggling with my own mental health and addiction after I left the priesthood. They have their own podcast, which is really good and talks about, you know, stories of folks who are struggling. I believe in shared suffering, right? So like the more we can listen to stories of folks who've gone ahead of us in ways that we might be headed, the better. And so, you know, I'll also listen to Joe Rogan occasionally. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I'm quite happy to hear, because, you know, he gets some of the best guests, right? So we live in a strange culture now, right? Where TV is not what it used to be. And now YouTube has really taken over. And podcasts of people just sitting around shooting the shit is what people are tuning into. And I think it's because we're tapping into the desire for empathy, right? Like of wanting to feel other people's feelings. And I think it's a good thing. I do. I think gaining new perspectives is a really good thing. I listen to one of Musa. I enjoy seeing his stuff out of Toronto podcasts. He's a guy I'd like to sit down with. So you tell him that. I'd love to see him sometime.
Yeah, we got to make that happen.
Yeah, no, for sure. And reading wise, you know, I try and read political leaders. I've been a big Barack Obama fan for a very long time, reading his book, The Audacity of Hope, when I was a young man, like 24, 25 years old, really changed my perspective as a very white guy who'd grown up in a pretty white community. And he was on his way to the presidency and reshaping a cultural mosaic that his background gave him unique ability and perspective to shape the emerging culture. And his memoir that released after he left office just a couple of years ago was very moving as well. And the religious undertones to it, and his quoting of Eminem, right? Like it was really good. Yeah,
cool. I just want to thank you for doing this interview with me. Like, this is so much fun. It's always great chatting with you. I just have one last question: is if money was not an object, if money just didn't exist, or you just had surplus money, whatever, what would you spend the rest of your life doing?
Authentic Ginger Media and Authentic Ginger Clothing.
Yeah,
because I believe in it. I love it, but it's also a project that is Giffen and Son, and it's been a project of Giffen and Son from its origin, right? So this is something that we created and molded and launched together as a family, and it's a family business. And if money was not that I don't love my clients in frontline work, I do. But no, if money was no option, I'd go all in on this and bring him right along with me and then have him inherit it all.
That's so cool. And that, like, there's so many more questions that I wish I could ask you, you know, and we'll definitely do this again sometime. Yeah. But I just, like, off the back of that, one last question is, what's it like being a ginger? From the very beginning, like, what's it like?
It was hard. growing up?
Yeah.
It was. I went to St. Edward's Catholic school when I first came to Canada, almost all Italian kids and me. And, you know, I got bullied pretty bad. Girls did not like gingers when I was growing up the way they do now. To be honest, it's changed a lot. I see it as a source of heritage and cultural pride now, right? And there are some people who don't like that, but that you know, this is who I am, and it's partly it's who I am. I was born in Scotland, right? I wasn't born here. I come from another place. People in that place often will look quite like me, but they don't here. And so for anyone who is struggling with whatever it is that makes them feel different, skin color, religion, hair color, whatever it might be, embracing that as a source of identity and a source of empowerment and something to boast in rather than be ashamed of changes you. And I've seen it happen for other people. And the most moving thing is when folks who are not gingers will wear our gear or partner with us in some way and create an allyship that both acknowledges our identity and theirs.
Interesting. And just to nerd out about melanin, we're pretty much done now, but I just wanted to say this is that melanin is such an interesting thing, and gingers actually have their own version of melanin. People can fact check me on this, but I believe it's called phenomelanin or pheomelanin. And what I learned that's interesting is that it's a completely different melanin that everyone else has, as well as I believe, people fact check me please, is that gingers can create their own vitamin D.
It's insane, isn't it?
It's pretty cool.
We require more anesthesia in surgery. We feel temperatures, both hot and cold, differently than any other people, more extreme. These are real things.
Yeah,
These are
I've read a little bit about this, but I didn't even know the anesthesia thing. That's crazy too.
Yeah, no, it's for real, and it's if you're not a redhead, why would you know? Do you know what I mean?
Totally.
But and the number of redheads who I've met who tell me afterwards where they're like, I knew all of this, but I didn't know it. Like I knew it from like my experience.
Yeah.
But it's real.
Yeah,
right? It's a real thing. We're different, right? It's
It's so cool.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of great examples of gingers who have done really cool shit. Like Shaun White, growing up watching snowboarding, one of my favorite snowboarders ever. Ginger. Dude is an animal. Yeah. He's insane. He's got that ginger blood in him, you know?
I met a girl once at a bar, and I had my hair down. She kept calling me Shaun White. I was like, yes.
Yes.
I'm like, how did this happen?
I love this. But David, really, really nice sitting down with you, brother. Always a pleasure.
Yes, indeed.
And shout out to everybody listening and watching Blue Eyed Devil podcast. And if you haven't watched the Raising Dad podcast with David and his son, Rory, definitely go check that out as well. And shout out to you guys, man. Keep doing your thing. And I'm really happy to see you guys growing and continue to grow and going viral and all that crazy stuff.
And Graham, before we actually finish, I'll just say this last thing. We would not be who we are at Authentic Ginger Media. Any of our podcasts, the work that Rory's doing, none of it would happen without you. And what you've done over the last year and a half, creating this podcast empire, is something to be lauded and applauded. And for real, man.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate you.